Alright, welcome again to another installment in Algebra 2. Today what we're going to be doing is we've got a couple of parts in section 1.6. First is this little part here about interval notation I'll talk about first, and then in a separate video I'll talk about the rest of section 1.6. So this is just a short little video here that I want to go over interval notation, and we'll talk more in depth about the rest of 1.6 in a second. Alright, so first of all, our objective for this video is to use interval notation. Alright, so first of all, in interval notation, infinity, the concept of infinity comes into play. And so infinity, it's just a set of numbers that continues forever in either the positive or the negative direction. And the symbol is like a little sideways 8. You can have a negative infinity or a positive infinity. So negative infinity means that your numbers basically are going that direction on the number line, and positive infinities means that your numbers are going that direction on the number line. Alright, in interval notation, a couple of things to keep in mind here. First of all, parentheses will show that the end point of your graph, when you graph this, is not included in the set. So if you have a less than sign or a greater than sign, you would use a parentheses. If you have both the negative or the positive infinity, it also is going to be a parentheses. There will always be a parentheses with the negative and the positive infinity. And then brackets will be used whenever there's an equal sign. So in your less than or greater than sign, if there's an equal sign included in that, that is when you use brackets. Let's look at a few examples here. Okay, so first of all, x is less than 2. Let me find my place here. X is less than 2. What would the graph of that look like? Well, let's look at a number line here. Here's 2 and 1. And so when we graph this less than, do we have an open circle or a filled in circle? There's no equal sign, so it's open. And less than means what direction? Less than means it's going to go to the left. So our arrow goes to the left. So our graph will look something like this. So if we were going to write that in interval notation, we look at what's going on each side of that. Okay, so first of all, the side to the left, the arrow is going on and on and on to the left. So that is the negative infinities. And so whenever you have either of the infinities, you're going to use a parentheses in front of it. So that's the parentheses and then the negative infinity. That shows that the arrow is going to keep going to the left. And then on the right side of this, you have the open circle. Now remember, open circle, or where there's no equal sign, we're going to also use a parentheses, and that's the letter 2. So I'll do comma 2 and then parentheses. So this is how I would write this in interval notation. I got parentheses around both of them, and then the negative infinity and the 2. Alright, so now on the other one though, going to be slightly different. Here's our number line. We've got a negative 2 and negative 1, let's say here. This one is equal to, so we're going to put a filled in circle on negative 2. And so, of course, this is going to happen here. And so I'll try to fill it in best I can without that thing popping up on me. So there's our filled in circle, and this time the arrow is going to go to the right. Okay, so we've got an arrow going to the right. Alright, so let's look at the two endpoints, so to speak, of this one. Well, first of all, you've got this filled in circle here on the left. Well, when it's equal, we have to use brackets. Okay, so I'm going to use a bracket here. And then I've got the endpoint, there's negative 2. So I've got the bracket and the negative 2. That means at negative 2 is included. That's why it gets filled in. On the right, the arrow keeps going and going. That's infinity, and whenever we have either infinity, whether it's positive or minus, we use a parentheses. And so we would write our answer that would look like that in interval notation. So we've got the bracket, -2, comma, +8, and then parentheses on the end of that. All right, couple of last things here. The ands and the ors. Okay, this is when we get into the compound inequalities. And so in this situation, and is the intersection of two inequalities. That means where the two inequalities overlap, and we're going to talk about that more in the next section. Basically, in our situation right here, this means, this is the same meaning as x is greater than 1 and x is less than or equal to 3. Okay, so that is what that means. So what is that graph going to look like? Here's my number line. Here's 1, 2, 3. Open circle on 1, and on 3 it's going to be a filled in circle. Again, I'm going to try to do that without causing the stuff to pop up. And so it's going to be greater than 1, less than -3, so it's everything in between here. So our graph looks something like that. Let's look at the two parts of this. Okay, what's happening on the left side here? It's an open circle. That means there's no equal sign there, so it's going to get a parentheses on that side and the 1. And then on the right side, that's a filled in circle, so that means it's going to get a bracket, and we're going to use the number 3 on that side. So our answer would look like that in interval notation. And then let's look at the OR. The OR it's called a union, and that's where either one or the other can be true. So you're taking both parts and putting both of them on there. They do not have to overlap. You're going to include both of them, not just the overlapping part. So on this bottom part down here, let's look at our graph here. So here's our graph. We've got say -7 here, -1 up here somewhere. So it's going to be less than or equal to -7. So filled in circle on -7. Okay. And the arrow goes to the left. And then on -1, it's an open circle, and it goes to the right. So our graph is going to look like that. So this is the trickiest probably of all of them here. So we have to look at these two separately, since there's basically two separate parts to this. So first of all, on the -7 side, it's going to infinity to the left right here, right? So again, whenever it's going to infinity either direction, we have a parentheses, and this time it's the -infinity. And then on the right part here, it's the -7, and since it's filled in, that means it gets a bracket. So that part, there's that part of it, but now there's another part we have to look at. And when this is an OR, when it's a union here, look at the U in union. There's this symbol here that basically looks like a U. That means the union. And then we've got the -1. It's open circle. So that one's going to be parentheses, -1, and then the positive infinity. And again, whenever it's infinity, either way, we use a parentheses. So on that one, that's what that'll look like, more or less. Sorry about that. Kind of cut myself off. I didn't even say goodbye. So that's it for section 1.6a, interval notation. We'll work some more on that in the next video in 1.6b. We'll do some of that as we work through it. So we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.